trolling Senator Elizabeth Warren as a snake, and in post after post, labeling Mayor Pete Buttigieg a rat. Two victims of this tell CNN they were so afraid of the online attacks they faced, they don't even want us to describe the circumstances for fear it would start up again. They both just questioned the politics of Bernie Sanders in a public setting, and their personal lives were exposed and attacked.
Well, just what Nick said, I think that's right. I mean, there is no Democratic establishment anymore. There's not even a Democratic Party anymore. The Democratic Party is a meaningless notion that the party, like the Republican Party, has been hollowed out and privatized to a large extent. There are Democratic elites, and so when we're talking about the Democratic establishment, we're really talking about a bunch of people that Nick also knows well, which really means Democratic donors.
This is the most important election in the history of our country.
This election is the most important in the modern history of this country.
The election in 2020, without hyperbole, is going to be the most important election this country has undergone in over 100 years. Not a joke.
This November's elections are more important than any I can remember in my lifetime, and that includes when I was on the ballot.
There are just 8 days left in what is the most important election of our lifetime.
Where did you guys come to a conclusion about why Clinton had such a hard time just owning that she did something wrong with the email server?
You know, I know that Russia and other forces would love us to have a debate. This is exactly what they want. They want us to have a debate about the internal structure of Hillary's campaign, what's true, what's not true. And I'm just not going to play that. I'm sorry.
We came, we saw, we died.
I was the CIA director. We lied, we cheated, we stole. It's like we had entire training courses. It reminds you of the glory of the American experiment.
You know, people have said, if you look at, for example, the heat that ended up around the bend the knee of Colin Kaepernick. Mm-hmm. Many smart people have said it actually was not a thing. The Russian bots started taking it. Really? Yes.
But I saw my mom. My mom is the strongest woman I know.
She should be running.
This is not about...
If you're like me, one of the millions suffering from pain caused by migraine, Nurtec ODT may help. It's the only medication that can treat a migraine when it strikes and prevent migraine attacks.
Trump and the Republicans lose on Tuesday, and if they lose badly, it's not going to be because of the left, whatever that means. It's not because the 50 Antifa black mask guys who roam around the United States breaking windows and committing mayhem, most of whom are probably paid police informers. Most of whom are probably paid police informers.
Rudy Giuliani, there's only three things he mentioned in a sentence, a noun and a verb and 9/11. I mean...
I'm going to try to get through this. Thank you for what you did 3 years ago today.
And I went to Wall Street in December of 2007, before the big crash that we had, and I basically said, cut it out.
And now I want to hand it over to the president of Ukraine, who has as much courage as he has determination. Ladies and gentlemen, President Putin. If we finally beat Medicare.
Thank you, President. Bye.
This version of Biden, intellectually, analytically, is the best Biden ever.
He is sharp, intensely probing, and detail-oriented and focused.
They're eating the dogs, the people that came in. They're eating the cats. They're eating the pets of the people that live there. And this is what's happening in our country.
I can't do it.
We'll do it live.
Okay. No.
We'll do it live. Fuck it. Do it live. I'll write it and we'll do it live. And thing sucks.
In 5, 4, 3.
Beautiful citizens of the internet, thank you for joining me. Oh, let me fix my lighting here. Just a little too bright. Thank you for joining me on another episode of the Polyticks show. Just before I make 100% sure everything's functional, make sure the mic's working. I've done these shows where I've gotten into it and I've been ranting for like 10 minutes and then someone in the comments is like, yo, your mic's not working. So it's always good to make sure. Anyway, there is so much going on. And as a working guy doing this show, when I, have the time to get to it, it's really tough to keep up with everything. Everything moves so fast. One of the things, to give you an example, that I was going to cover in this broadcast was a piece that the Duran had done about Trump going up this escalation ladder with Russia. And then he announced he did a call with Russia and they're going to have a meeting in Russia. So it's like that story changed before I could even get on to talk about it. It's crazy just how fast things move. So it's almost like when I do these now, it's like, hey, I just want to make sure I get a snapshot of the week that we're in and try my best. I mean, for my own sake, even to just touch on like what some of the top news items are. For the longest time, I was doing this on Sunday, and then I messed with it on Friday. But I think Saturday might be the best day for me to jump on and do this. So I don't know. I'm going to keep experimenting. Thank you again for joining me. And let's get into it. Let's just dive into it. So my whole kind of theme this week, to start here, is they still don't get it. And I think this phrase applies to both the Trump people and the people who are against Trump. And I'll tell you what I mean there. I think with Trump, the biggest thing that liberals and anti-Trump people still don't get about Trump is that a good percentage of the people who are, quote unquote, Trump supporters, or the people who are kind of like fine with the Trump administration, don't really like Trump. Like I'm a good example of that. Like I didn't vote for Trump in this last election cycle. We could get into other election cycles and there's nuance there, but I didn't vote for Trump. But I kind of like some of the things that he's doing, despite, a lot of the things that he's doing I don't like. And so I think one of the things that, a lot of liberal people, or, maybe Democrats, former Democrats, whatever, people who aren't like, Trump supporters or like, just like whatever, I don't really care what Trump, I'm not that freaked out by Trump, as freaked out as like people in the Democratic ecosystem are. I think what those people don't understand is that we don't really like Trump. We just like the fact that he's a break from to some extent, I mean, at least we thought he was, from the establishment uniparty. Now we're starting to see cracks in that, of course. But I still think, turning a gigantic thing like the U.S. government around is like turning around an aircraft carrier, despite, the stuff that you can do as an incoming administration. There's that a lot of that existing rot is going to remain. And you're going to see in one of the clips I have today, it's crazy. Zelensky straight up says that, and I'll call it out now, but I'll point it out again when we get to it. But Trump asked him, like, one of the reporters asked Zelensky what he thinks about President Trump or something along those lines. And he goes, I think that he has a view for being this president, but the next president will have a different view. Almost like Zelensky saying, like, I'm going to be here after Trump's gone. Like, you guys are still going to be sending me money. Your next president I'll have to deal with the next president. It's like a really wild kind of scenario. But anyway, I think what really stuck with me now on the other side, I think what the Trump people don't get, there's a lot of people celebrating the ceasefire in Israel. Like, oh, he solved the Middle East. It's solved. Like, no, I think James Lee said it best when he compared this Gaza ceasefire thing to remember, if you're my age, you remember when George Bush landed on the aircraft carrier with the mission accomplished banner. It's kind of the same energy that Trump has here with the Gaza ceasefire. Like, we did it. It's done. Let's have a party and move on to the next thing. And it's like, yeah, it's not that easy because he's not using the leverage he has. And this is something that anyone with a brain can see. It's like, okay, if Israel's going to violate the ceasefires you set up, you, Trump, have the power to pull the weapons away, to pull the support from them. But that will never happen for a lot of reasons we won't get into now. But I think that's the other side of the they still don't get it thing, is like a lot of the people that on the pro-Trump side don't get is that, you know, and it's not all of them, honestly. I've said this before. I think the MAGA people are less cultish than the left people are. They're a lot more willing to criticize Trump and for not being America first and all that kind of stuff. And so, but I still think what they don't get is like, we're all skeptics here. You know, you people that are celebrating the end of the Gaza thing, like, it's not over yet, dude. Like, and I'm going to show you that in just a moment here. So I think the first thing I kind of want to talk about today is last week, or not last week, but the last time I jumped on and did a broadcast, right? We talked about Mark Maron and all the comedians who are getting shit for going to Saudi Arabia and performing in Saudi Arabia. And one of the biggest one of the people who is the most outraged by this is Mark Maron, of course. And so it's been clear to me for a long time that Mark Maron is jealous of like the Rogan comedians, you know, the people who are kind of like have careers now, despite him. And what I said in my broadcast, like the biggest point I was hammering on with Mark Maron is, spare me your outrage, Mark Maron, over comedians who performed in Saudi Arabia. You're platforming Obama, who, you know, killed hundreds of civilians with drone strikes. So you're no better. And again, look, it's a you could say that's a jump to make. No, it's not. Like the US likes to pretend we have these rose-colored glasses on in regards to our own actions, where it's like, oh, you got to condemn the dictator in South Korea or Saudi Arabia or whatever. You know, the dictator that like I've been propagandized into thinking is a certain way, you know, and maybe they are, you know, I'm not saying that that's always wrong, but you start to realize like how skewed our view of the world is when we don't even consider ourselves and all the damage that we've done to the world at large for the last, you know, 20 years, since 25 years now, since 9/11, to put it lightly. I mean, even before 9/11, let's be honest. And I think that, like, you know, the attitude that people like Mark Maron and, you know, Obama still represent is why people like Trump. It's why, like, when I hear Obama talk now, it makes me glad that Trump is president, because I think the biggest thing, and this is kind of the whole overarching thesis of my whole show today, the biggest thing with Trump is it's a repudiation of the Obama era and the like neocon policies dressed up in liberal, you know, hogwash. You know, they're like, oh yeah, like in Israel, we got to kill Palestinians because they're anti-gay, you know, like the pink washing and that kind of thing. That's what the Obama era represents to a lot of people who had a lot of hope with Obama, which it was his campaign slogan, that things, you know, were going to change when he came in. Like he was going to be a breath of fresh air. And he was a breath of fresh air on the surface. You know, he was the breath of PR fresh air. And I think it was John Mearsheimer I heard saying this. He was a way to continue selling the world our wars, because, you know, with Iraq and, you know, the Afghanistan wars under the Bush era, on the world stage, the neocons were these like religious zealot, like bumpkin, like, you know, aggressive, angry, like closed-minded religious zealot pricks. And people hated that. But once you flipped it around and put like a friendly face, a friendly non-white face on these wars, it was much easier for Obama to kind of continue the status quo without much pushback, because everyone's like, yay, we got a black president, woo. And it's like, you know, it's a nuanced conversation, because I don't think Obama was the worst president we've ever had either. You know, he, like, if you look at these things through a lens of reality, you have to understand the forces that these people are dealing with as politicians. And that's why I think, a little less critical of Trump on some things than some other people might be. You know, the people that are very quick to dunk on like the MAGA people is like, fooled again. You know, it's like, well, it's a little early, you know, because there is things that Trump is doing that I like I discussed last week with the H-1B visas. That's a very clever way, Trumpian way to fix that problem, slapping $100,000 fee on it. Yeah, you don't have to dismantle the whole program, but you make it honest that way. All of a sudden, because the excuse that these people use with the H-1B visas is, oh, like we got to get the best and brightest from around the world. And it's like, well, I've seen this in practice. Colleges and medical institutions hire through H-1B visas because they can get cheaper doctors and nurses, you know, with degrees from other countries. So they ship them in. Now, if you want a rock star surgeon from India, you're willing to pay $100K for that H-1B visa because he's a rock star who's going to bring a lot of business and a lot of, you know, do a lot of good work at your institution. So it's worth it. So it kind of like, as weird as it is, the Trump move made that program honest. It was like a really intelligent way to fix that problem. So then you have Obama and these dumb fucks who still, you know, I think a lot of these people, it's been a while since I used this, but a lot of these people still live in this world.
But ain't that America for you and me? Ain't that America?
And I think that world changed me in a lot of ways. I instantly realized I was being driven to like hate people who were like, oh, hey, I don't know about this. Like, should we really be doing this? Like, I'm kind of like not on board with this. Like, you're a demon. You should be denied healthcare. You know, it's like, so I think that's broken down to the point where now when someone like Obama comes out and talks, and there's so many like Obama clones on the Democratic political stage now, like Pete Buttigieg, who like have this like cadence, this Obama-esque cadence where they're almost like trying to sound a little Southern, but like still eloquent and educated. And it's like comes off as robotic and contrived. Like Pete Buttigieg, I think, is the best example. But even Kamala, like when you listen to like her cadence when she like is doing political speeches or whatever, like the way that she like enunciates and things like that, she sounds like she's trying to be Obama. And so it's like whenever I see Obama now, it's like nails on a chalkboard. It's this like, oh my God, I used to like totally worship you and think you were the greatest. And now every time you speak, I can just hear the fakeness and it like makes me angry at myself for buying it, you know, when I did, because there were people that didn't. But also you have to remember the dynamics around Obama. You know, there was like a big racial dynamic, and there were a lot of people who didn't like Obama because he wasn't white. That's just a given. But what happened was those people, like, you know, got used as a, like, if you criticize Obama, you're just one of those people. You're just a racist, you know? And so it's a convenient cudgel. And I think that's why the Democrats wanted to continue running with the identity politics things, because they don't have to answer for it. And again, going back to they still don't get it. Before we move on here, the Democrats have never once self-analyzed. They've never once gone like, wow, why did we lose that election? Why did we lose to Trump? They just blame everyone else. And I think, you know, again, it's like they still don't get it. They have never self-reflected and gone like, oh, wow, maybe stomping the Bernie voters and telling them to go fuck themselves if they didn't want Biden wasn't a good idea. Maybe it's something we did. That's never, it's just like, Trump bad. Like, hey, Democrats, what do you stand for? Trump bad. So that brings us to our first order of business today. Speaking of fake and contrived, the No Kings rallies. So that is the headline from CNN today right now. There are protests going on all over the country. Large crowds gather at No Kings protests to rally against Trump. So, I mean, okay, the fact that you can even have this protest and it's not being, you know, maybe they're all being cracked down on by this National Guard right now. I don't know. But that kind of shows you that we don't have a king. And that's one of the things I think the biggest drama points with someone like Trump is like there's this idea that he's like a threat to democracy. And it's like, bro, people voted for him. He won the election. So democracy is apparently a threat to democracy. But also, it goes back to this like idea of stochastic terrorism, where we're like otherizing our political opponents now, like on a regular basis, to the point where I think most people are over it. And it's like, I know good people who are like Trump, and I'm not going to like call them all Nazis, but it's still a very thick atmosphere, you know? And so you have something like this, which is clearly a contrived, you know, event. It's like, what does this stand for? It's like the pussy hat protests. The first time Trump got elected, is like, okay, like, what are you guys really advocating for, though? Because as we're going to get into in a minute, a lot of the stuff that people have been scaremongered about with Trump, like abortion and IVF, is not real. He breaks from the like old school Republican ways on a lot of that stuff, because he's a fucking Manhattan, you know, executive. Like, he's not a country bumpkin who's like, Jesus, you know, he's definitely pandering to that demographic, don't get me wrong, but he's not one of those people. So to keep going with this is very interesting concept here. So this is what I'm showing you here is the latest headline today for the CNN, you know, homepage. This is the biggest news of the day, no kings. So I'm going to cut to yours and my favorite political commentator, Jimmy Dore, because he has the best summarization of what this actually is, I think. So
was, you know, not that Joe Biden was credibly accused of rape.
I know.
But not that, but Donald Trump was anti-woman. So they had a women's march, which was about absolutely nothing. There was no issue they wanted. There was no policy they wanted enacted. There was nothing. It was a big nothing. And what it was to show that America is divided. And they're doing it again, Mel. So there's the no kings, no thrones, no crowns, no kings protests, which is going to be on October 18th. It says millions of us are rising again to show the world America has no kings and the power belongs to the people. And here's the map from their website. That's going to be all the no kings rallies, which, by the way, funded by George Soros.
Yes.
And here's what they say it is. The No Kings protests are a series of nationwide demonstrations in the United States.
I know Jimmy gets into this, but I just want to say this because I was explaining this to one of my relatives, because he's like, yeah, I heard those No Kings rallies are funded by Soros. And it's like, yes, technically, but I did a breakdown of this before. It's not like Soros is like, hey, let's make a rally called No Kings. Here's a bunch of money, like, which is how they make it sound. What happens is Soros funds things like the Tides Foundation, which is like a big NGO, and that organization distributes money to, you know, in the case I did before, it was about Jewish Voice for Peace, because they were trying to say like, oh, Soros is funding all the college protests against Israel. No, Soros is funding foundations that give money to NGOs that happen to be protesting Israel now. And what that whole thing was, you know, at the time was kind of like a bulletin, a subliminal message to all the donors, like, hey, you better stop giving money to these people that fund Israel protests. You know, that was at the time. But again, they make it sound like Soros is out here directly funding these protests, and that's not how it works. Soros just throws money at shit, and then these other little NGOs kind of distribute it to the causes that they think, you know, are going to be the most effective.
In 2025 to oppose perceived authoritarian actions by President Donald Trump's second administration. The first major wave occurred on June 14th, dubbed No Kings Day, and coinciding with Trump's blah, 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 blah. So it's all about organizers framed it as a defense of democracy. So after the Democrats had no primary, after they sued to get third parties off the ballot, now they're the ones standing up for democracy. Isn't that wild? Because they're not for democracy.
No.
So, and I just want to show you, and it says a second wave, No Kings 2, which is the one coming up on the 18th, is scheduled for October 18th, building on the initial momentum amid ongoing government shutdown debates and the criticisms of Trump's policies. Protests emphasize peacefully assembly, de-escalating training, blah, blah, blah. But conservatives have labeled it astroturf, top-down and orchestrated rather than grassroots, which it is.
Yes.
Which it
Yes,
is.
easily proved.
This is not. There wasn't a bunch of workers got together. There's a bunch of George Soros funded and NGOs and the ACLU, which has turned to
Jimmy
complete crap since 20.
Keith Olbermann was actually asked what he thought about the No Kings protest. Here's what he had to say.
Now, I'll confess that I have licked Joe Biden's dick all the way through since 1975.
Thank you, Keith.
16, and they wouldn't stand
Well,
up for anybody.
Arabella Partners, the Tides funds. I mean, all these funds. They are all
Yes.
funds, but the problem is
Tides.
that most people aren't realizing they want to collapse America from within. The goal is Agenda 2030. That's the whole goal of all of this. These people are being used like they've been used throughout history every single time. They don't know what they're marching for. And you said that about the ACLU, but at the same time, a lot of the unions have been fully infiltrated by.
Yes.
It's really.
So I'm gonna duck out there, but I don't know if you remember this, and I covered this before too. Mike Benz, the cyber guy, he very clearly said, that's how, if Trump gets elected, what all the energy is going to go into is civil unrest, like the BLM stuff, the summer of love, quote unquote, like all that kind of stuff, where it's like, okay, well, now that Trump's president, here's what we can do to kind of like derail his agenda or like turn the public against him and that kind of stuff. And it's like, a lot of the public's already against him, but I think the thing again with Trump is like the thing that gets me the most mad and makes me like one of those people who's like, fuck you. Like I like Trump, just the more that the status quo comes out like, oh, it's terrible. The more I'm like, yeah, okay. The more I like the guy. I think that it's lost on them that this kind of shit is just making people, and also there's so much nuance in it because the difference between, Trump and the Democrats is massive in the sense that the Democrats would just be doing most of the same shit, the bad shit anyway, that Trump does, like the Venezuela shit we're going to get into in a minute, the like forever wars. Like the Democrats would be doing that and gaslighting you about it. Like one controversial thing Trump did was change the Department of Homeland Security, or what was it, Defense, to the Department of War. I love that because that sounds more honest to me. Oh, this guy's from the Department of War. Like, when the Department of War is involved, it's serious shit. It's like, okay, we have to fucking question the fuck out of this now because it's Department of War. Whereas when it's this Orwellian, it's the Department of Defense. It's like, yeah, defense is somehow like going and bombing other countries and taking their oil. Interesting, isn't it? So it's stupid and like what most people think is dumb, mindless shit. And the more like these people get upset at the challenging of like norms or like decorum stuff. Like I saw a report before I came on about like Trump said the F word at a press conference. And it's like, bro, what year is this? Like, it's so funny to see the Democrats turn around and become the like pearl clutching religious right people because of Trump. They just, it's such a funny dynamic because they don't know how to grapple with it, where in the past they could just go, that guy's bad. But then Trump is actually like to the left of them on a lot of stuff as in the new Republican era. So it's like, they're caught in this weird place where they actually have to stand for something that might alienate some people and like be serious about a political agenda. Like they might have to stand. And that's why you see a guy like Mamdani in the New York, like he pisses off a large segment of the public. And there's obviously very organized propaganda to like make him look worse than he is. But like, that's the kind of honesty that you need to have in today's world, I think, to win in politics. And I think the Democrats still live in this era where they're trying to be everything to everyone. And you can't do that anyway. You're going to have to anymore. You're going to have to piss people off. And I think that's why the Trump kind of like era is so elusive to the Democrats, because they're still stuck in this old mentality of like, oh, we got to play politics on this, instead of just taking a strong stand that might piss off like some people and just accepting that you're not going to ever be able to please everyone. And you just have to like actually fucking stand for something and follow through on that, So here's what a lot of the more intelligent voices in the political universe had to say about this. We'll start with my boy Postuopoulos here. He has to say clown work because here's Hillary Clinton. In 2 days, be a part of the largest peaceful protest in modern American history. Join No Kings this Saturday at an event to push back on Trump's power grabs and make it clear we don't do monarchs here. What's so funny about that is Hillary Clinton was the president's wife who thought she deserved to be coronated as the new queen of America because her husband was once a president that was liked by a lot of people. Then you have Nick from Revolutionary Blackout, who I always appreciate Nick's takes because he's one of the more militant voices out there. And I always appreciate that because there's very few people, like I said before, with the balls to actually stand for something that might piss off some people, like having the balls to fucking say something that might be like, oh, you're a terrible. No, fuck you. Like, you're propagandized. Most of the time, that's what it is. But here's Nick. He says, never in a million years would you ever catch me supporting a protest in alignment with the military-industrial complex. And just to like, it's the yellow ribbon thing to support. So here's Max Blumenthal. I don't know if you remember with it, to go back a little bit. The yellow ribbon thing was basically during the Iraq war, it was like to support our troops. We had the yellow ribbons for that. So here's Max. Home of the Brave, a group of neocons like Bill Kristol, ex-FBI officials, and wealthy corporate GOP lobbyists is kicking in $1 million to promote No Kings and steer it to the pro-war center-right. Their first ad bizarrely equates Donald Trump with Hugo Chavez. So that's the new thing too. It's so funny to like watch Democrats attempt to like call Trump a communist dictator. You know, like that's their new thing. Like he's a communist. Like, and again, it's so funny how our political kind of dialogue in this country works. It degenerates to, you know, right wingers calling everyone commies and left wingers calling everyone fascists, and neither side knows what the other means. Like you couldn't, like, you know, the liberals calling right wingers fascists are like, if you don't take the jab, you deserve to be denied medical care and fired from your job, which is like the absolute definition of fascism, being forced into an experimental medical treatment, you know, versus, you know, and those same people will be like, well, I deserve bodily autonomy for abortion. Okay, well, like, how does that make sense? Then the flip side again is the conservatives who are like, oh, you don't deserve bodily autonomy when it's your baby that you're pregnant with, but I do when it's a vaccine I don't want to take, you know? So there's always this dynamic exists. So we'll just fight each other over the dumb nuance of shit like that. When it's like, the reality is, to me, if you're consistent, these questions are easy to answer. Yes, bodily autonomy is important in both the whether or not you take a vaccine or whether you are pregnant. It's none of anyone else's fucking business what I do with my body. If you're a woman, you could argue that, especially if you're married to a husband, what you do with that child, it is also kind of, someone else does kind of have a say in it. But I think that say goes out the window if you were raped or abused or, you know what I mean, sexually assaulted or something like that. It's like, it's a complicated issue where, you know, they just want us to fight each other about the nuance of those things, when I think at the core of it, we'd all largely agree. And I appreciate anyone who's consistent on those. So here's Max again. No Kings, the Democrat-oriented protest group organizing anti-Trump rallies this Saturday, urges protesters to wear yellow ribbons inspired by the NATO-backed color revolution in Hong Kong and the Ukraine proxy war. No Kings messaging does not include opposition to U.S.-Israeli wars. And it's funny because, you know, say what you want about Trump, you know, he's navigating the Israel-Gaza thing in the most Trumpian way. And I have to admit, the Trumpian way is better than the Democrats, because this is the kind of gaslighting you'd be getting. At least with Trump, you know, he's going to pat himself on the back and act like he's the fucking hero of the universe, but he's making movement, you know, and we're going to get into how it's definitely not over yet. But just the fact that he's talking the way he is a good sign, you know. And again, it's like, you have the power to really end it if you want to, America. We all know this, but you know, there is a lot at play with that, because yes, ending the weapons supply to the war in the Middle East is a good way, is the way to stop it. But not only do you have opponents of that in the country that is getting the weapons, you also have opponents of that here in the United States in the industries supplying the weapons. So for a guy like Trump, who's a business-headed person who's thinking about a lot of this stuff, I think from a business standpoint and a how do we make a deal and solve this problem standpoint, he's got to consider those people's interests as well because they're part of the country. So it's like, again, I don't necessarily think that he solved the problem, but I do think it's a much better reality on the ground with him at the helm than it might be with the Democrats. Than it would be. Absolutely. Not even might be, then it definitely would be. What's up, my brother? Thank you for joining. I think Saturdays are the best days for me to do these, it just makes the most sense. So let's talk about a little bit of local politics. If you pay attention to me at all, you know that I'm a California guy. That's kind of like, regardless of where I go in life, Southern California will always be my home. I just, I was born and raised in Utah, but LA is my home. It's just undeniable. Whenever I leave LA, my heart aches for it. I love California unapologetically. I know that it's fucked up. I know that the government there is a mess. Adam Carolla for governor. I think Jimmy was talking about that. I think that's a great idea. I think Adam Carolla, he's just a sensible guy. You listen to the guy talk. Plus, he's a working class guy who came up from like construction. You know what I mean? A radio guy who worked in construction. I like Adam Carolla a lot. But anyway, to set this up, a week or two ago, my daughter called me and she's like, "Dad, what do you think about the Prop 50 thing?" And I was like, well, I haven't really been paying attention. I was honest with her, which I think my daughter appreciates about me. I don't pretend to know stuff I don't know. So I said, honestly, I don't know that much about it, but let me kind of read up on it and I'll call you tomorrow. And so I did that. I did my homework and I read up about it and I kind of came to the realization that, like anything the Democrats are pushing, the whole thing is about Trump. The whole thing is about Trump. It's like, we got to stop Trump. And when you really peel back the surface of this, and what we're talking about here now just is Prop 50 in California. When you really peel back the surface of this, what it is a Democrat DNC power grab in the name of Trump bad. You know what I mean? And so here's to give you kind of the background. If you're not in California or you're from out of state or you don't kind of understand the nuance of this. Gavin Newsom is running for president. It's pretty clear if you've seen the way he's acting. Now, Gavin Newsom has on his, in his closet, the devastating fires in California, in LA, that happened recently. In addition to the mass exodus of Hollywood and entertainment business from the state, in addition to other problems, there's a long list of problems in California. It's a massive bureaucracy, but it's a place I love. And it's absolutely one of the best places in the world to live if you can afford it, which is why it's so expensive. I think Daniel Tosh said it best. It's expensive to live on the coast because it's worth it, but I digress. So what's going on is Gavin Newsom's running for president and he can see what's going on in Texas. There's a controversy over redistricting in Texas. And so what Gavin Newsom is trying to do is take advantage of that to stick it to Trump and also at the same time give California, which is a largely Democratic run state, the ability to draw their own districts as they see fit. And so basically what they're doing is saying like the Republicans are bad, so give us the ability to do what they're doing. And some of the biggest pushback I read from this on the Republican side was Arnold Schwarzenegger, and he was just on Bill Maher talking about this and disagreeing with Bill Maher on it because Bill Maher is for it and Schwarzenegger's against it. And the point that Schwarzenegger made is that right now, the way this system works in California is independent commissions of local voters are assembled to draw these districts up. And what Gavin Newsom's plan would do is take that away from these independent commissions and give it to the elected politicians in their districts. So what you have then is, once Democrats win the election, now all of a sudden they have the ability to kind of like draw the districts in a way, which again, some might argue, well, the Republicans are doing that. Why can't the Democrats do it too? Well, the reality is you shouldn't have to do that. And I think it's going to blow up in the Republicans' face because especially in a place like Texas, you're getting a lot of people moving from California there, and it's changing the cultural demographics, like it or not, it's like people are going to age out of that. Like the conservative Christian, like Bible thumper, you can see it with the Republicans. It's like, yeah, there's still some of that there. There's the Charlie Kirks and the kind of like hangers on to the right-wing Christian like mentality in the right, but like it's not a prominent thing anymore. It's much more the libertarian Ron Paul, the Dave Smith kind of wing of the party that is going that the younger generation that attracted it. Like that's why Trump won, because of that wing of the party. Definitely not because of the religious right. And when you listen to Trump talk versus like what the Democrats say about him, you understand that. But anyway, I digress. So I say that a lot now. I digress. So what the point that Schwarzenegger made, I think, was made even more eloquently by someone I have some respect for. He definitely has rubbed me wrong on a couple different things. But Butch Ware, Jill Stein's former running mate in the last election cycle, is running for governor. And if I was going to vote in this election cycle, I would probably vote for him. But listen to what he has to say about this plan of Newsom's as an independent candidate, as a candidate who's not a Democrat or a Republican. And I think this is the reason I chose him on this issue, is because he's going to have the fairest take, because he's not beholden to either of those corporate parties. So listen to what he says.
I'm against anything that disenfranchises Californians. Fred Hampton, who was a great Black Panther intellectual, was killed by police in Chicago. He said, "We don't believe that you fight fire with fire best. We believe that you fight fire with water best." We're not going to fight racism with racism.
That's such a profound fucking quote. Fight fire with fire. Why not fight fire with water? Like, that's like one of those things one of those cliches that I never really thought about in that context, but that's fucking brilliant.
We're going to fight racism with solidarity. We're not going to fight disenfranchisement with disenfranchisement. We're going to fight it with representative democracy. The Democrats, they don't want the people's voice to be heard. They want to consolidate power. And under the guise of fighting back against the Republicans and fighting back against Trump, you are handing them more power. Well, what have they done to earn it? In the state of California, are y'all feeling that this has been a state that has been well run and for your best interest, that it's working for working people? So you're going to essentially hand them the keys to make sure that they own every district in the state? You imagine thinking that you can fight fascism with fascism.
There you go. And I think that was the absolute best take, like I said, on that issue, just being as someone who is not beholden to either party. But yeah, the thing he said about the Democrats, like, what have they done for you in the last, 20 years that they've run the state? The state's in shambles. Like, jobs are fleeing, everything's overpriced and just out of whack. The state was consumed by fires that no one was prepared for some reason, so how can you, like, oh yeah, okay, yeah, everything's been great, here you go, guys, take over forever, that it's such a great point. So anyway, I think that's just a little sidebar of local politics. And California is a big, important state. It's, if you break it off from the United States, its economy is like, I think like the 5th largest in the world. So it's a big powerhouse. And that's not to take anything away from states like Texas or, New York or whatever, or even Florida or Illinois, Seattle, Washington. We have a lot of economic powerhouses, but California just happens to be one of the bigger ones just due to the locale. You have LA with the film industry and TV industry, and then you have San Francisco Bay Area with the tech industry with, Meta and, and then Seattle's up north with Amazon and Microsoft. But anyway, you get the idea. I think that the overall consensus on that is like, oh yeah, of course. Why wouldn't we like want to fight back against Trump and like give the Democrats the right to? And the other side of that, the flip side of this too, is it's supposedly a temporary thing that only lasts 10 years. But if they have all the power, when it comes up in 10 years, they'll just renew it. You know what I mean? For another 10 years. So I think even that part of it, the temporary aspect of it, is kind of irrelevant because it doesn't really take away the ability to renew it, so fight fascism with fascism. I love that what Butch said combined with this poster, fight fascism with fascism. Yeah, don't fight fire with fire, fight fire with water. One of the most brilliant and simple things I've heard recently, I have to admit. So let's talk about Trump's foreign policy. As you may or may not know, he solved the Middle East, of course. No one's ever seen anything like it. It's the greatest thing in the history of our country. My Trump impression has just got degeneratively worse and worse over the last couple of months. But you get the idea. So I tuned in today and I thought, how's it going? How, the perception of, and this is like one of the latest tweets that I could find on the issue from this guy here, George Rousseau. And he says, Israel has violated the ceasefire 47 times and killed 38 Palestinians, says Gaza media office. Authorities urge UN to intervene to protect unarmed civilian populations after attack on bus that killed 11. And he links to a story in The Guardian. So yeah, it's done. Congratulations. We did it, guys. We have done it. And that is what we, they still don't get it. That's the one that's the side of this statement that's aimed at the Trump supporters. What you don't get is that Trump could end this at any time with the clipping of some financial purse strings. That the power of the purse, as they call it, and it's sad that people have kind of bought into that, just like lock, stock, and barrel. But that's the Gaza update. Like, sorry, folks, it ain't over. The killing is still going on. But the world is a big place. And Trump is Hitler, of course. But the world is a big place, and there's a lot of other things going on that warrant our attention. So I think one of the reasons you may see these attempts to like wind down other wars is they're trying to ramp them up in other departments. And one of those places is Venezuela. And so I think going back to what I was saying about earlier about how, being a new president is kind of like turning an aircraft carrier. Max Blumenthal recently had a guy on his show to interview who was involved in the first Venezuelan coup attempt during the first Trump administration. And what this guy kind of says, that my like big takeaway from this, and I'm going to show it to you now, is that there are multiple forces at play in the government. And he doesn't believe necessarily that Trump ordered this, but that someone in the government did order it. And so I think that's one of the things I'm trying to keep in mind, just to be fair to Trump, because of how unfair the press has been to him, I think, at large over the years. It's like, to me, and I think a lot of people, it's one of the reasons he won the last election cycle, is a lot of people are wise to that. And it's just evident that that hasn't stopped either. It doesn't matter what this man attempts to do. It's going to be met with opposition because that's not necessarily true. Continuing the Israel war is definitely not going to be met with opposition. So I take that back. But going back to the Israeli conflict and everything, it's kind of like he's trying to maneuver these different opposing kind of currents in the best way that he knows how. And, so it's a delicate tightrope to walk, I think. And, I think there's very few people that might be as well equipped as him to do it and just kind of take the heat of all the people that are upset about the status quo. So anyway, going back to the Venezuela thing, Max interviewed this guy. His name is Jordan Goudreau, and he kind of outlines this is taking us all the way back to the first Venezuelan coup attempt. So the first Trump administration, the first time they attempted this shit, and listen to.
Yeah, that's correct.
I don't know the number of how many Venezuelans were killed, but this attack was perpetrated by, U.S. intelligence working with Venezuelan opposition. I guess you could say saboteurs. So there's
go ahead.
Yeah, there's a longstanding history of the CIA working, and I have a secret recording with it's George Betancourt, Lester Toledo, with there's a guy that I had to take a secret recording. They were talking about how they don't trust Donald Trump and that they only trust the CIA, they only trust Juan Cruz, and it's plain as day about the allegiance, where the allegiances are to these individuals. They're not aligned with Trump; they're aligned against Trump. And I think, if I may, fast forwarding now.
So that's one of the things I wanted to point out here too. And keep in mind, this is the first Venezuelan coup attempt. And I think this is one of the things to Max's credit, because Max definitely has a left-leaning viewpoint, but I think he's been one of the best journalists in the Trump era despite having that, Max is just anti-establishment, period. Whether it's a Republican or a Democrat, he has been anti-establishment. But I think I love what he's been doing in the Trump era, because I think, much like me, he sees the status quo alignment against Trump. So he's not afraid, with the Charlie Kirk thing. And, Max was one of the few people who he didn't say, no one can say Israel did it. There's no proof that Israel did anything in relation to the Charlie Kirk shooting, for example. But the fact that Netanyahu came out and said some shit about it so soon after it happened is so goddamn suspicious. No one would have even made that connection had he not been so quick to jump into the fray on that, where it's wait a minute, what? No one, I would have never even connected Netanyahu to Charlie Kirk in any way whatsoever had he not done that. And so it's that's the kind of shit where it's okay, yeah. And Max, I think, has done a good job reporting on this without saying with continually saying, there's no proof whatsoever that Israel was involved in this. However, there's a lot of weird things about this story that make their instant apologetics about it very suspicious. Anyway, what he said there, I think, is so clutch, because he said these forces are aligned against Trump. Let me back that up one more time. And
now, when you look at the allegiance, where the allegiances are to these individuals, they're not aligned with Trump; they're aligned against Trump. And I think, if I may, fast forwarding now, when you look at the dynamic with Maria Corina, how does the Trump administration trust any of the opposition leadership from Venezuela? So you have a very detached relationship between these individuals. So, and I think the media narrative on all of this has been, you obviously there's an individual who writes for the AP who's been gunning for me for a long time. And, he comes up with his word choice is pretty careful. He talks about tacit approval. There was no tacit approval. There are no bones about it. I was tasked to do this. I was given verbal authority to do this by several parties who were working for the government.
So what he's saying here again, and this is, I think, big news. Like, he was instructed by people in the government who were opposed to the president to do this, to go in and try to coup Venezuela, which, you look at, I didn't put anything together about John Bolton because we talked about him being indicted, or we talked about him being raided, but he was just indicted. And during this time period that this guy's talking about, who would have sent that order out? Probably John Bolton. So it's like, I think in this cycle, it's happening again though. And so I honestly, it's a weird kind of thing to square, because if what this guy's saying is true, this first attempt to do this during the first Trump administration was done by people who didn't really have his kind of backing or kind of approval. But this time it seems like it does. Okay. And I'm going to show you, this is from a recent press conference he did with Rubio, where they talk about sinking a submarine. Anyway, listen to this. This is weird.
From your latest boat strike, what happens to those survivors?
Well, I'll ask Mark.
So people survived this strike, apparently. And I need to read up on what they're saying. Like, who are these people? Because it's so weird to me that they're just shooting these boats out of the water suddenly. But I think this is telling, because the reporter asks Trump the question, and watch, he instantly defers to Rubio. He's just kind of like, yo, this ain't my department. This guy's handling that. So, as when I think having a person who's run a large company is a good thing to have in a presidency, because the biggest part of the job is delegation, because you can't physically do everything yourself. One person can't. But so what you have to do is trust, hand these things off to people that you trust, and for better or for worse.
Venezuela, there are survivors from your latest boat strike. What happens to those survivors?
Well, I'll ask Marco to discuss that possibly.
Yeah, it's well known there's an ongoing narco-terrorist operation the United States has been conducting. As far as details of any recent strikes, we're not prepared here to announce all those details, but you'll get that information here very shortly.
And how are there survivors when these are meant to be lethal attacks?
Yeah, again, I mean, we're undertaking these operations against narco-terrorists. That's what these are. These are terrorists.
Okay, so that part of the conversation really struck me, because the reporter is angry that they didn't kill everyone on the boat. I don't know if you heard that. She's like, how were there survivors if these are supposed to be targeted attacks? It's how come you guys didn't kill everyone on the boat? She might as well have just said that. And his response is even better, because he's like, well, these are narco terrorists. He doesn't give her any kind of answer. He just calls them a name, which, okay, what's your proof that the follow-up by a good reporter would be, okay, what's the proof that they're narco terrorists? Let's see how this unfolds.
Let's be clear. And but as far as the details of any recent operations, when we are prepared to announce those, we will, as the president has consistently done. So you may get something on that later today.
Let me ask you, that was in a submarine, right? We attacked a submarine, and that was a drug-carrying submarine built specifically for the transportation of massive amounts of drugs. Just so you understand, this was not an innocent group of people. I don't know too many people that have submarines. And that was an attack on a drug-carrying, loaded-up submarine. Yeah.
Okay, so the always hilarious Donald Trump. I had to figure out, okay, is this for real? What is going on with this? So here is the latest update on this for you, because I'm updating myself here too, because I did not prep for this during the show. Forgive me for the slow. Wait, what the hell just happened there? President Donald Trump announced on Saturday U.S. forces under his orders destroyed a very large drug-carrying submarine navigating a notorious narco-trafficking route toward the United States in the Caribbean Sea. The strike, the sixth against suspected drug vessels since early September, killed 2 crew members described as narco-terrorists while rescuing 2 survivors now set for deportation in Ecuador and Colombia. Trump hailed the operation on social media as a personal honor, estimating the submarine carried enough narcotics to kill 25,000 Americans and emphasizing zero harm to U.S. troops. Intelligence reportedly confirmed the vessel's illicit cargo and ties to designated terrorist groups amid a U.S. military buildup. So intelligence reportedly confirmed the vessel's illicit cargo. Okay, so I don't know if you feel the same way that I do about this stuff, but to me, it looks like what they're doing is trying to build a case to attack Venezuela to take their oil. And drugs is the best. Because I told someone this the other day. When has anyone ever been like, yeah, that's some good Venezuelan cocaine? Like, you never hear that. You know, it's not. Venezuela is not a country that's known for its drug exports. But let's go back to Max and this.
But I do.
This guy.
I do think that when you look at when you peel back the layers and you simplify it, there are sides to this, and the sides are quite clear.
Yeah. Which side? What are the sides?
You have an intelligence community that has been obviously. I mean, I saw you reporting the other day in the '90s. Cartel de Solis was stood up by the CIA. This is no secret. I mean, this is the truth. I mean,
this is the cartel which Nicolas Maduro is said to be in charge of, but may be actually defunct. And you're confirming that it was set up by the CIA in the '90s.
Oh, absolutely. This is not. We've known this for quite some time.
According to what the former head of the Drug Enforcement Administration told Mike Wallace, this drug shipment got here courtesy of what he calls drug trafficking by the CIA in partnership with the Venezuelan National Guard.
Yeah, the Cartel of Suns is kind of a joke among us because it's. I mean, they didn't name themselves that. There's a patch on their uniform that is a sun, and so I guess the DEA or whoever named them this. But the facilitation of the drugs by the CIA from this group is well documented. And so you have this side of it, right? You have an intelligence agency that, quite frankly, they will withstand changes in presidency. And so they have their TSSCI projects running and their ability to facilitate and to aggregate resources from drug trade. And this is what they're trying to protect. So how does it benefit them to get rid of Nicolas Maduro, right? Like, it really doesn't. You can argue, Monroe Doctrine, you have to have white space in Venezuela and surrounding areas of the Caribbean so that Russia, China can't get a strategic foothold. But the other side of the coin is, and this is obviously what the Trump administration is this is one of the reasons they're pressuring the Maduro regime, and were back then, or at least they should be falling back on Monroe Doctrine. I know that largely they're relying on the fact that Venezuela is a narco state, but that's the irony, right? I mean, okay, Venezuela is a narco state, but their partner is the CIA. I don't know how to square that, right?
So I do, and it's funny. I'm glad. I'm going to let you listen to Max, but he basically says everything I thought as I was watching this guy speak.
Yeah, I mean, my understanding is it's more of a petro state and responsible for only a fraction of cocaine exports to the United States. But it seems to be, and this is, I think, extraneous to our conversation, or we can kind of cover it later, but just for the purpose of context, it seems to be a target because of its oil wealth and its socialist-oriented sort of nationalist resource government being targeted under cover of a drug war. There's an official actually who's been involved in the targeting of Venezuela for years, who operated out of the State Department, but seems to wear a different hat, potentially a hat at Langley, and his name is Juan Cruz, and he's come up in the discovery documents through your case. Can you tell us about Juan Cruz, who he is and how he fits into this story?
Yeah, so Juan Cruz was the go-to for George Betancourt and Lester Toledo. He was, as far as I know, he was their guy, like, the face of the intelligence agency for these two individuals, which would have really made him their handler. They referenced him by name, and he had some strange things to say about me when he was interviewed after the fact, after all this went.
So, okay, well, we can duck out there, but I show you this just to illustrate the point that, like, what this guy said, people like this Juan Cruz guy will outlast presidents. So you have to remember that as Trump comes in as president of this, massive bureaucracy, he's like trying to finagle these things and on these different, in these different places, and there's so many different forces pushing back. And so it's like with this Venezuela thing, it's like this obviously was started during his first term, continued through the Biden years, and now is continuing with Rubio at the helm. So for him to just come in and like dismantle it is damn near impossible, but we're going to see how it plays out. And I don't think it's going to play out the way they think it does, because these never do. But that's where we're at with the Venezuela. Like they're shooting these drug boats. Now, maybe the submarine did have drugs on it, but like the other side of this is, okay, why not capture it? Why do you have to kill the people on it? Capture it and impound the drugs and stuff and like have proof. It's just, I don't buy their excuses. I think there's way more. It just seems like there's stuff they're not talking about with this stuff. Like, it seems like they're going after people under the guise, like Max said, of it being like a narco terrorist. Like you saw how quickly Rubio said when she's like, why didn't you kill all of them? Why were there survivors? He was like, well, these are narco terrorists. And it's like narco terrorist is the new thing, narco Rubio. Anyway, that's where we're at with Venezuela. Take a quick sidebar. See Mike from... Okay, so I was just checking out some of these comments. Anyway, I'll have to get to you after I'm done, Mike. But thank you for jumping on, brother. So anyway, keep going here with Trump foreign policy. That's kind of the road I'm going down right now. This press conference that I took this submarine question from was a press conference they did yesterday with Zelensky about the Russia-Ukraine thing. And so, with the Gaza thing, I don't think it's over. It's clearly not. And I really doubt that Trump is ever going to flex any real power on that for the reasons I outlined earlier, because he's got to deal with the arms lobby here, as well as AIPAC and all that stuff. And it's just much easier for, I think, a lot of politicians to like not make that their enemy. And like you saw it with RFK, right? It was like RFK, he had so many enemies, like you couldn't help but kind of give him a pass for being a Zionist. At least me anyway, I was kind of like, okay, well, dude, the guy's fighting with pharma. He's fighting with like big food lobbies. He's fighting with like oil companies. He's got like every major corporate interest is aligned against the guy. I'll give him a little pass on the Israel thing, because he's just like, okay, I don't want to fight everyone. That's the one political thing that you have to kiss the ring on. So anyway, moving on to this Trump Zelensky thing. What I thought was interesting about this, and I'm going to show you this right now, is they had clearly kind of planted questions in the press corps. And I'm going to start with, I thought this was pretty good how Trump handled this. This is why I can't help, one of the reasons I can't help but like Trump, right? Is because just watch this clip and the question and the way that he kind of responds to it, and you'll understand what I'm talking about.
Applied to Ukraine as an escalation, yet it continues using similar cruise missiles like Caliber. And
yeah, who are you with? Who are you with? You're Ukraine? Good.
He's like, who are you? The guy's asking him this question. He can tell by the framing of the question. He's like, who are you with? And the guy's like, oh, I'm with Ukraine. So he's, yeah.
But Russia continue even using the cruise missiles and also nuclear-capable ballistic missiles in Ukraine since 2022. So do you consider providing Ukraine with the Tomahawk or similar missiles as an opportunity to equalize the possibilities of Ukraine and Russia and push Moscow to the negotiations?
Yeah, sure. We're going to be talking about that. That's why we're here. Okay, fair question. Exactly as he told you to say it, but we're going to be talking about it.
Exactly as he told you to say it. So he's like, yeah, Zelensky put you up to that, didn't he? I thought that was great.
Okay? Yeah, please.
On the flip side, it sounds like Trump did the same thing here to Zelensky and had a guy lined up in the media to ask him. And I thought it was really interesting that they pitched Zelensky questions at this press. I guess that's kind of what it's for.
Wait, please.
So listen to this.
Oh. By the way, you look excellent.
So he goes, Zelensky, this is your third trip here. By the way, you look excellent, because Zelensky has like a suit on. I don't know if you remember, he got a bunch of shit. They're like, why don't you put a suit on when you come to these meetings and show some respect type shit.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Listen.
This is your third time here. How different sitting across from the president is this time versus the two previous times here at the White House? And how confident are you hearing the success rate of solving these prior wars that he can get this war solved?
First of all, about suit. The same suit because the same president. It's very simple. The next president will have another suit.
So he's like, it's the same suit because it's the same president. The next president will have another suit. Kind of insinuating that he's going to outlast the current president. And that on its own is like, oh my God. As an American, it has to like upset you to, unless, of course, you're one of these people who supports
Yes, about our relations with President Trump, I think we have important dialogues, and I think we begin to understand each other. Yes, and I know that the President is briefed very well about the situation in the battlefield, and he knows a lot what's going on in the battlefield in Ukraine, and I think it really helps. When you know a lot of things, a lot of details about one or another war, it helps a lot. But we are still in war, and I hope we can manage it. It's important.
Not meeting their commitment. You pointed out Spain. They said that like it's impossible.
So anyway, I thought that was kind of funny, and also telling the way that Zelensky responded to that question with a like, well, you know, he has this suit and the next president will have a different suit. Yeah, because I'm going to be here whether you like it or not. I'll be here again begging for money when the next administration. So the next thing they get into here is Zelensky's basically there because he wants Tomahawk missiles, which Russia has told Trump is a red line. And if he gives them those missiles that he can then shoot into Russia, that's kind of like declaring direct war against Russia, which makes sense. You know, like they wouldn't be doing, because it also takes Americans to shoot those missiles. So it would be actually American forces openly helping Ukrainians fire missiles into Russia if we allow this. So in this next clip, Trump kind of addresses the situation with the Tomahawk missiles, which is what Zelensky came to ask for.
What's going to happen if the United States is in a conflict and we need the Tomahawks?
Well, that's a problem. We need Tomahawks, and we need a lot of other things that we've been.
And whoever this guy is, just a quick sidebar, that you heard ask that is clearly like someone that Trump planted in the press room to ask these questions, or the Trump administration, someone in the administration, like, because these are the questions that he wants to answer. If you heard what the guy said, he said, what are we going to do if we get attacked and we don't have enough Tomahawks? And so it's like, that's the Trump excuse for not giving them to Zelensky, because it's the reality is probably that Putin told him, because he did a call with Putin before this. Putin told him flat out, like, if you give these guys these missiles, you're declaring war on Russia. So if you do that, that means we're going to retaliate in kind. So Trump is being, I think, this is my theory, of course, my little side theory, but I think he placed this guy in here to ask this question for that reason, because that guy is asking about, what happens if we get attacked and we don't have. So that's going to be Trump's excuse for not escalating the war and giving Ukraine those missiles.
Sending over the last 4 years to Ukraine. We've been, we gave them a lot. Now we have a different situation. We send it to the European Union. They pay for it and all that, and they have plenty of money. But it's beyond the money. We need Tomahawks, and we need a lot of other weapons that we're sending to Ukraine. One of the reasons we want to get this war over is exactly that. It's not easy for us to give. You're talking about massive numbers of very powerful weapons. So that's one of the things we'll be talking about. Hopefully they won't need it. Hopefully we'll be able to get the war over with without thinking about tomahawks. I think we're fairly close to that. Yeah, go ahead. President, yeah, please.
So I like his answer on that. He's like, listen, we need the weapons, but hopefully we're going to get the war over without the tomahawks. So that's good answer, Trump, on that one. And then the last piece from this press conference that we'll check out here, he basically talks about this reporter asked him, and like I said, I think this guy's a plan. He's like, are you going to ride the momentum from solving the war in Gaza into the Russia-Ukraine thing?
Do you think you can carry the momentum from the Middle East deal over to this deal? And
I do.
So, how does that move the needle?
Yeah, I do. I think we carry a lot of momentum, a lot of credibility. Getting Middle East done was very important. Nobody thought it could be done. That was one nobody thought it could be done, and we got it done. And a lot of that was the big hit that we put on Iran with respect to the nuclear they took. That was an unbelievable military maneuver.
So I disagree with that, and that's him kind of making excuses for a gigantic mistake that he made in attacking Iran on the behalf of our friends in the Middle East, our best friends. But I think that he's definitely wrong about, like, he's like, oh, we got this peace deal because peace deal, as I showed you, there's already people being killed in Gaza again. So it's clearly not peaceful. But I think the rest of what he says, aside from the like, oh, the attack on Iran was the best thing ever, it was so great, the rest of what he says here is pretty on point.
The B-2s and many other planes involved, by the way, but the B-2s. Yeah, I think nobody expected that to happen. And, we had 59 countries involved, and these were countries very diverse. You had Arab, Muslim, Jewish, you had every country, Christian, you had every country, and many countries involved. And we got that done. And we got it done pretty swiftly after we set the table properly. We had to set the table properly. This should be one that we get done. And I think the table is set properly here now, too. And it'll be a great honor. It'll be a great honor to get it done. And the Ukrainian people are great, and the Russian people are great. And obviously, they have much in common, as we understand. They have a lot in common. So it'll be a great honor to get it done.
Yeah, so he's being diplomatic there. And Bill Maher, I happened to catch Bill Maher the other night, which I don't really watch Bill Maher that much. I wanted to get the clip of Arnold because Arnold was on there talking about the Prop 50 thing. But anyway, one of the things that Bill Maher kept harping on is that Trump somehow got both the Arabs and the Jews to like him. And I think that's important. It's like, and maybe it is that tough guy bravado. I don't know. But like he's saying here, set the table. It sounds like at the very least, these guys are willing to pay some kind of, respect to the views of these different kind of factions. And that's what you have to do. It's like they used to be like, oh, we don't negotiate with terrorists, or we're not going to even sit down. I remember when Obama was president, they're like, oh, Obama's going to, it's like they would call him Neville Chamberlain because he was going to talk to someone who we once like did war with or something. You know what I mean? So there's a pressure to fold to that and be like, oh yeah, we're not going to, they did it to Trump when he met with Kim Jong-un and Putin. They're like, oh, he's a sellout to the commies and whatever. Now the Democrats are attacking Trump as a communist, comparing him to Hugo Chavez. So anyway, I thought that was a good kind of take overall. And as we know, to segue into this next bit, Trump is the devil. But I want to show you one more bit of news that, I just like to, I'm very against the status quo. So whenever anything just becomes a thing that everyone agrees on, I always have to find a way to disagree, or not necessarily find a way to disagree, but like find out why they're wrong, because most of the time they are. Not always, but this is a bit about IVF. And I know that like a lot of women that I know, like liberal leaning women, were like, oh, Trump is going to take away all these like reproductive rights from women, and it's going to be this terrible thing. And first of all, with the abortion thing, the Supreme Court passed the law making the pill available nationwide, regardless of local laws. So like, it's not perfect, but like abortion is technically legal nationwide now. And then with this, it's like the same thing. It's like, yeah, there are people in the Republican Party who are like religious zealots who don't know any better that are against IVF, but Trump is not one of those people. And so I want you to see just a little bit of this announcement that they did recently, because I didn't know even the dynamics behind this. But he kind of lays it out here, and I was like actually kind of surprised by this.
IVF and the treatment and many of the most common fertility drugs for countless millions of Americans. Prices are going way down, way, way down. I want to thank Libby Horn, who is the Senior Vice President of Fertility of EMD Serrano. So I want to thank you. Let's see here. That's what I thought. I thought it was you. Thank you, Libby, very much. And let me also thank the Secretary of Health and Human Services, Robert F. Kennedy Jr., whose wife destroyed the people on The View yesterday. I have to say that. She's
Shout out
not going
RFK.
to ever get into an argument with her. And you've decided, you learned that a long time ago, right? She did a great job, actually.
I was going to pull some clips of that, but there was actually a really good piece of her on Megyn Kelly talking about how like Bradley Whitford from that show, what's it called? The West Wing, was like telling her she needed to divorce her husband and like break her family up because he didn't like RFK's politics. And it's so wild to me, like how easily these people are emotionally manipulated, because RFK Jr. was a Democratic presidential candidate. You know what I mean? Who was like forced out of the party for like having views that didn't comport with the fucking donors in the status quo of the party. And it's like, I say this time and time again, but Democrats, Trump is bad. You have to have more substance than just that. Like I know that might have worked for you in 2020 when we had mail-in ballots, but like clearly it didn't work in the last cycle, and it's not going to work again. Because after this cycle, I know he likes to troll and pretend that there's going to be like a Trump 2028, but he's not going to be there after this year. So then what? Trump is bad. MAGA is bad. You know, if stuff like this ends up working out, trust me, and I say this if anyone from the Trump administration is listening, if they send out tariff rebate checks to the working class, like basically stimulus checks, that's it. Like MAGA will win the next election, because that, I think, not only do people really need that right now, and maybe they're waiting until like inflation dips a bit so it actually helps the economy more. But I've heard Trump economic advisors, I mean, I did a piece on this, recommend the tariff rebates, like, and say that like that's how like a Republican economic advisor say that like giving people money will stimulate the economy. That's such a gigantic turn from what Republican economics always were, which is like just give money to people at the top and it'll trickle down. Reaganomics has been the consensus for years and years and years, to the point where now it's like the Democrats thing too. And the Republicans are starting to like embrace that populist wing a lot more with stuff like this. Anyway, let me let this finish.
Secretary of Commerce Howard Lutnick. Thank you, Howard.
Sorry, the point of that entire sidebar too was just that like the Republicans today are not the same Republicans of 20 years ago. It's a new party.
Secretary of Labor Lori Chavez de Rima. Thanks, Lori. Howard, thanks. CMS Administrator Dr. Mehmet Oz, who's a fantastic guy, and he's done really well. FDA Commissioner Marty McCary. Thank you, Marty. Senator Katie Britt, who got me started with this whole thing when she called up to say there was a bad ruling by a judge, right? We got to do something, sir, and we did it very quickly. Probably in 24 hours it was done. Congressman Richard Hudson, a great guy, and his wife Renee. Richard, hi, Richard. And Advocate Samantha Bush, who's a very respected person. For years, American couples struggling with infertility have faced crushing costs in their quest to start a family, and IVF is among the most expensive treatments of all. A single round of IVF in the United States can cost up to $25,000, can actually go a lot higher than that, and many couples require multiple rounds for a successful pregnancy. A major reason for these high prices is the excessive cost of the drugs involved. The number one fertility drug used in IVF is currently 700% more expensive in the United States than the rest of the world. And you know, we're ending all of that. It's called favored nations, and we're ending it, and we're ending it pretty fast. Nobody thought we'd be able to do it, and we've done it.
Nobody thought it was possible. It's the greatest decision in the history of our country.
Drugs are going to come down. Drug prices are coming down. 400%, 200%, 600%, numbers that nobody's ever seen before. Great for Medicare, Medicaid, even Social Security. Great for everything, I think, Dr. Oz. So that's something that's, to me, it's very exciting. I'm bugging him and Bobby all the time. How are we doing with that? And we're doing really good, Bobby. It's really going good. Other countries are agreeing to it because if they don't, we put tariffs on them.
So I think Jimmy said it best that RFK and kind of like the Maha part of the Trump are like one of the bright spots. And stuff like this, I think, is an example of why. Because you have, this decision, this IVF thing is totally an RFK decision, because RFK, that's the other thing. The Maha people are like working moms. And RFK listens to those people. He's listening to these like, and I have to say, if you're one of these people, I apologize to my brother. This is crazy. And I've probably told this story before, but I'm going to tell it again in relation to this story about, IVF and how I think maybe even Trump might not have known that much about it, but maybe RFK and Dr. Makari and these other people in the Trump administration schooled them on it and why it's important. And, if we want happy, healthy families and more increased birth rate, it's a good thing to subsidize for the government or regulate, make sure that the price isn't through the roof for the average person. But I think that with all this stuff, with the Maha movement and, working moms and things like that, it's like having someone like RFK in there who is actually doing things to kind of change the dynamic that we all know exists. So I guess the point I was getting to is a couple of years ago, I got into an argument with my brother because him and his wife were like anti-vax kind of, and we had this whole discussion about vaccines. And at the time I thought he was a total kook. I was like, dude, and the argument kind of ended with us going like, yo, because he went to Africa to do like church stuff, like help in Africa, like with, a lot of churches send their people over there to like do Christian outreach work and help communities and stuff. So he went to do that. And we're like, are you going to get a malaria vaccine? He's like, yeah, of course. I'm like, well, then why are we even having this conversation? And after the COVID thing, after the pandemic, I kind of like apologized to him for that whole incident. I called him up and I was like, listen, man, I don't know if you remember this a couple years ago when we got into it, when I was down visiting you in Austin, Texas. And we got into it about vaccines and I was disagreeing with you because him and his wife were like they were like against getting their kids vaccinated. And now and then, I apologize for that. I was like, listen, dude, I'm sorry that I thought you were crazy. Like I really do. I apologize. I had a total change of perspective on that thing. And it's like, look, that's not to say that like I've said this many times too. Pharmaceuticals and the pharmaceutical industry have also saved millions and millions of lives. I'm sure like it's undeniable, the technology, medical technology and the things that the pharma industry have done to enhance people's and save people's lives is like probably like beyond countable. Like it's almost like it would be impossible to measure, how much good that they've done. But that doesn't exempt them from everything. You know what I mean? And I think it's like we just want people to be honest, regardless of whatever industry they're in. And we'll get into that in a few minutes with the ticketing industry. But I digress. I'm kind of running sideways now. So I wanted to move on to the next big story or one of the big stories lately, and that's Charlie Kirk. It's kind of like an ongoing story. And I think one of the things about this that's interesting to me anyway, because, if you're not conservative, a lot of people that aren't like tied up in conservative politics might not be following it. But I think in the political realm, it just says so much because I think to me, like what it's kind of become, and you can see this with the way that it's kind of breaking out, is it has become the right-wing version of January 6th. And to kind of clarify what I mean there, January 6th was an event that really happened, right? It did happen. And there were people that broke the law and those people deserve consequences. If you vandalized or like broke windows at the Capitol, whatever, you deserve the consequences of that action. And there are plenty of surveillance cameras. I'm sure they can provide proof in a court of law to prosecute you for those crimes. But outside of that, it was enhanced clearly as a media event to kind of like sway the consensus towards like, oh, look at how violent and evil the MAGA crowd is that like Donald Trump. We should criminalize this political movement and not allow them to ever hold power again because they tried to overthrow the government. That's what it basically. You have the same dynamic here with the Charlie Kirk shooting on the right, where it's like, oh, clearly an angry leftist, like pro-trans guy shot Charlie Kirk in the face because he didn't like Charlie Kirk's Christian, pro-life, anti-trans or whatever traditional views. And the thing totally loses steam when you even scratch the surface just slightly, because first of all, the guy that they, told us all did the crime hasn't confessed, or, I don't think we've heard from his lawyer yet, have we? Maybe I'm missing something on that, but then second of all, there are so many gigantic holes in the official story, starting with the idea that he was shot with the rifle that he was shot with, because a bullet from a rifle of that caliber would have taken the guy's fucking head off. There would have been blood spatter. And it looked like a little clip in the neck, like where's the bullet, And so the whole thing, like right there, the story falls apart. Like where's the blood? There's no blood on anyone, it's a bullet of that magnitude would have taken this guy's head off, or at least created enough of a violent explosion of his neck that you would have seen other people get spattered with blood. And that didn't happen. So there's a giant hole right there. And you kind of, it's pretty clear with that reality right there that the official story is bullshit. So now you're just left with like a bunch of questions. You don't, now at this point, it's like, okay, well then what really happened? And then you have people like Candace Owens jumping into the fray and explaining, things in a much better way than even the FBI has explained them. Like, so Candace Owens, I think, has won like this massive audience as a result of all this, because she is doing a better job of investigating the Charlie Kirk thing than the actual law enforcement in the country is doing. So I'm going to go right now to Sabby, who did kind of she did kind of like a, what's the word? Retrospective on this. And rather than myself going in and getting Candace's clips, I'll just play Sabby's kind of summary of this, because she did a good job. And this is basically her talking about how even Alex Jones, who was one of the people who's, instantly critical of the different conspiracy narratives, and has to be because of what he's been through, even he's kind of like on Candace's side. So check this out.
Expanding the network, Tate Brothers, Dave Smith, Max Blumenthal, Tucker Carlson, Mel is Village Crazy Lady I was telling you guys about before, and more will have legal files and personal text messages related to my time at Turney.
Very cool that Max Blumenthal is on that list too, and Dave Smith, like a lot of Tucker, a lot of like trustworthy individuals.
Point, PragerU, and Daily Wire.
It's almost like Candace Owens is just kind of like using this to like call out like the journalists that she feels are trustworthy,
Plus my private conversations with people like Seth Dillon and Dave Rubin. These people have my explicit permission to release everything publicly if anything happens to me. Charlie's death and the audacity of the people like Josh Hammer eulogizing him means we must all share information and let the truth rise up. So let's see what she said here.
I went ahead this week and sent around a life insurance policy of sorts, a package rather, to people that I trust, a package filled with text messages, emails, private communications, videos, and private legal documents. So if anything happens to me, you guys will know exactly who it is that has been making my life a living hell over the past couple of years. People that are trying to bankrupt me and my family, that are threatening us to sue us. Everything that Kanye said was so real Okay. I'm now at that point where you look back and you go, man, Kanye was right. He was.
Kanye, for real. I said this the other day, you know, you got to give Kanye credit, because look at who the talk of the political sphere are right now. The Candace Owens and Nick Fuentes, both people that Kanye pretty much introduced to the world back in his, off the rails phase. So you got Kanye, wow, Kanye fucking living 1,000, in 3000, way ahead of us all.
Really saying something about what it takes to leave, to fight for custody of your own soul. Just leave me alone. Let me say what I believe and you say what you believe. Fight fair. Why do you always have to make this threat to bankrupt people? And I want you to know that those people, if anything happens to me, they have my explicit permission to release it all, detonate it all, expose all of these people in politics and in the movement who behave like this behind the scenes. It's necessary. And I highly recommend every single person that is out there, that has a platform and is going through things and is scared, do the same. Send everything around to about 8 people that you trust. And I mean, I've ranged it. I sent it to journalists, text messages and screenshots to people ranging from Max Blumenthal to Andrew Tate. They won't know where it's coming from.
So I would hope that Candace has security.
She does.
And
but I have no doubt to violate these was to
hi. But you cross us. Some of the women in the chat and it's gone. It's all gone. Now, she also went on to say apparently that Kanye also had some messages. Listen to this.
Yesterday, and which got picked up, was to create a kill switch, right? To realize that Kanye was kind of right. Never too late to say that Kanye was right. Kanye said that in order to be free, you had to violate these contracts. You had to recognize that your voice is being controlled. And Kanye did just that. It was really an act of bravery to free himself. But I have no doubt that the same people that were torturing Kanye, the same people that were torturing Charlie Kirk, Kanye died today, would be the first to eulogize him. I feel that. I do. I feel that. And I think it's important to share that information, as Kanye sent me all the messages of people who were threatening him. I have them all, to information share with Max Blumenthal, with people, people all over the place, to send a package and say, if anything happens to me and it looks suspicious, release it all. It's not even about having an opposite and equal reaction. I want it to be an unequal reaction. I want it to be a mistake, because it catalyzes people waking up and learning.
I just want to, real quick, I want to remind you what a legend Kanye is. This is video of him peeing on his own Grammy Award. Real quick. Just to remind you what a absolute legend Kanye West is. I love Kanye.
Exactly how this matrix works. And Alex Jones, I brought this up on his show, my kill switch.
The kill switch thing. Yeah, I personally wouldn't have named who I sent that information to.
Fair.
To each its own, but I wouldn't have dropped any names. I would have just said, I have information that's been sent to multiple people, but I wouldn't have dropped the names. But that being said, Alex Jones, finally, he decided to say something about this. And like I said, it seems like all those people have kind of turned on her.
ADL is played out. Nobody knows who the ADL are. Stop giving them attention. Nobody cares about the ADL.
Let me tell you, this industry is very interesting. People will grin and smile in your face as long as you move the way they want you to move, as long as you do what they want you to do. But the moment you start to pivot, then they become your worst enemy.
No one in high school knew what the word anti-Semitic was until Ye made it popular.
I don't want to tell their story because they talked about it on the Spaces one time. I don't know if they wanted tell it on YouTube. But I do know that there have been other women, other Black women that were a part of the Republican Party that were in the media space, and they turned on them too.
And she caught liberals that wanted to control what she was doing with the social media thing she launched. Jussie Smolletting her, sending her white supremacist threats and all this, and found out because they messed up and left some of the metadata in there that it was the feminist group that was trying to take over her organization. So that was kind of a wake-up call for Candace. And there she is. That's like 9-10 years ago or longer.
Okay, hold on. Let me back that up because I didn't catch that the first
threats and all scene.
Support Candace here. So let's hear what he said.
Again, I've known Candace since she exploded on the scene because we were one of the first to ever get her on. And how she woke up in the leftist cult. And she caught liberals that wanted to control what she was doing with the social media thing she launched. Jussie Smolletting her, sending her white supremacist threats and all this, and found out because they messed up and left some of the metadata in there that it was the feminist group that was trying to take over her organization. So that was kind of a wake-up call for Candace. And there she is. That's like 9-10 years ago or longer. So she has a lot of credibility. She's a very truthful person. I disagree with some of her views and overall solutions she might come up with, but we all disagree. I mean, I'll have one opinion a month ago and kind of change it a month later. But we're about 95% aligned. But on integrity, she's 100. And boy, does she lay the traps for him. She comes out and says, yeah, Charlie was calling me, wanting me out of his events, again, and all the rest of it. And he was also really concerned about the Israel lobby coming after him. And they said, you're a liar. Charlie doesn't like you. Charlie didn't like you. Charlie didn't call you. He didn't text you. And so she let him say that for a few weeks and then released it.
And let me say something about that. We were talking about the women thing, right? Women always have a card to play. I call it the Uno
I hear you. It's definitely a tiger by the tail.
So I just wanted to go through that for a minute just to kind of show you that Candace has the backing of people like Alex Jones in this. And I think she's definitely onto something because, again, there are so many giant holes in the official story. It almost seems, I even said, and again, this is for entertainment purposes only, it almost feels to me like Charlie might still be alive and the whole thing was like kind of faked in order to foment this like, oh, the left is so violent type thing, especially the way that a lot of people have picked up that torch and started running with it. And I saw kind of this back and forth happening between an account that I follow on Twitter, and I didn't get screenshots of it, so forgive me. Maybe I'll put them in a post, but basically Kanikoa the Great, who's like kind of one of the journalistic accounts that I follow that's like a faceless account, but they like highlight a bunch of things. He said, he kind of came out and said like, oh, we have no reason not to believe the official narrative. Like the guy confessed and we have the text messages and stuff. And he was kind of going back and forth between Ian Carroll and Ian Carroll said something. And then the Kanikoa guy was kind of like, oh, well, like, how dare you accuse Israel? And he's like, I never accused Israel. Like I've said pretty consistently, there's no evidence that Israel was involved, which there is not. However, again, the instant reaction of people like Bibi to the death of the guy seemed suspicious for a lot of reasons. And maybe, like I said, maybe it was a staged event in order to kind of foment kind of anger at certain groups. Maybe it was legit and we're just not being told the whole story about like what's behind it. But it's very clear, regardless of what you think, that it was the official story is bullshit. So anyway, I was going to go into a clip here with Glenn Greenwald talking about basically how the Trump administration is kind of weaponizing this in the same way that the Democrats weaponized the January 6th stuff. But I'll just make that point I don't think there's any need for me to show this clip, but it's kind of like, again, I just see this as the right's January 6th moment. And it's not necessarily, again, just Trump himself. It could be just elements within the Trump administration who now have the kind of levers of power going like, okay, how do we January 6th, the quote unquote left now that we have this chip on our shoulder which is a well-deserved chip, right? About the January 6th thing, where they clearly kind of like manufactured this narrative and kind of took what was a kind of not a great thing and made it into like a something massive that it was not. Like made it into this massive like political event where it was like, yeah, it was a couple wild rioters. It was a riot. It was a couple wild people breaking windows and stuff. But a lot of those people turned out to be cops. And, the people who, again, did that kind of stuff should go to jail. But then they made these hearings around it that were produced by a television producer and stuff. So I feel like you almost kind of have the same dynamic flipped with this Charlie Kirk thing where it's like, oh, look, they're already kind of like telling the story they want you to believe with this Tyler fucking, I already forgot his last name, Tyler Robinson character and all the, the stuff that they're doing. Anyway, let's move on to a really undivisive topic here in the form of Kid Rock and Ticketmaster. So if you've been following the Ticketmaster escapade, Ticketmaster has been breaking the law quite consistently. And I think what's really interesting about this is that they have been kind of like reprimanded by multiple administrations now. The Biden administration actually went after Ticketmaster, and I believe it was the DOJ. But now the Trump FTC has filed a lawsuit against Ticketmaster. And it's interesting because one of the big proponents of that was Kid Rock. Like, I don't know if you remember when Trump first came back in, Kid Rock was a huge Trump supporter. And he went to the Oval Office in this like extravagant outfit to lobby Trump to like do something about ticket prices. Well, this is like a pretty crazy, it's not crazy, but it's very typical of the American story. So to kind of summarize it and simplify the issue for you, here's what's happening. Ticketmaster has a third-party market. And I'm sure if you've ever bought a concert ticket, you already know this. There's a lot of scalpers that come in and buy the tickets and then resell them for a way higher price. And it creates this third-party market that Ticketmaster actually benefits from, because then the tickets, a single batch of tickets are sold through their system multiple times. They collect fees each time those tickets are sold. So it's like a triple dip for them, sometimes double, triple dip on the same set of tickets. So it's hard for them to look at that and go, okay, government, we'll do what you want and we'll close that down. There are multiple ways they could stop it, but they kind of turn a blind eye to it because it benefits them to do so. And the way that it was broken down to me is that basically these ticket brokers, if you have $80K, you can buy $80,000 worth of tickets using, brokers or individuals that you hire or bots or whatever, and then turn around and double your money by selling those tickets at a markup of twice the original price. And the way you could fix this is just by putting price caps on the tickets or limiting the resale to like once, there's different ways you could deal with it. Also, I know when Trent ran his Nine Inch Nails tour a few years ago, he made people kind of buy the tickets in person. So there's ways to like verify that it's a real person and get around the bot farm shit. But again, these companies are not, they're incentivized to do the opposite because they're making money off the broken system, which is the American story in so many industries. But I'm going to let Kid Rock talk to you now, and because he has kind of a good take. In this clip, I borrowed from a account called Rock Feed that does basically kind of like music news, but he's got Kid Rock's Instagram rant. So check this out. This is good stuff.
There were some of the people in the business talking about ticketing. That when President Trump did that executive order with me in the Oval Office, that these know-it-alls out in California were like, oh, they're just showboating, really did nothing. What he did was he ordered the FTC and the Department of Justice to go investigate see what the hell's going on with ticketing. Well, guess what? They
I have to say, I was one of the people who thought they were showboating. I've got to be honest.
investigated. And what happened? They filed a lawsuit against Ticketmaster. Because clearly they found out that those motherfuckers are crooks, and they've been crooks for decades, over the public and over artists. Now somehow, can I flip this phone around? Somehow I got one of these world orbs. And that proves you're a human. Comes with an app, world app. You download it. It's proof of human, proof of humanity. This thing would cut the bots out, cut the scalpers out immediately. Somehow I got one in my house. But the ticketing companies can't figure this out. You know why? Because every time, if you buy a ticket and go to a concert, you are their worst customer. They want that ticket to resell on their own platform so they can f everybody twice. They get the service charges. They get another, whatever, 17% or something on top of all the other horse shit they're dicking you around with. So like I said from the beginning, I don't know if breaking Ticketmaster up solves the problem. I'm not sure if this orb solves it, but it's a step in the right direction. I know this. None of the ticketing companies are using it. Somehow I got one in my house, but they can't figure it out. They're full of shit. They could have stopped the bots years ago. They could have fixed this problem, and they haven't because they're greedy. So I hope they all go down personally. Right to the bottom.
I just want to pause here for a couple reasons. First of all, he's right. So two things here. First of all, he sounds like a lefty. Listen to him. I don't know if breaking up the company is a good idea or not. Sounds like a fucking socialist. Does it not? And second of all, if you're going to take this type of thing on, you have to have this kind of energy. And that's one of the things that the Democrats have always lacked, in my opinion, is any kind of like intestinal fortitude or nutsack, where it's like, hey, look, Bernie Sanders is probably the best example of this. He's just a goddamn gigantic pussy, where it's like, dude, if you had any of the courage of your convictions whatsoever, Bernie Sanders, we could be in a much better place. Trump would have never even been a factor if the Democrats had, Bernie Sanders had the nutsack to say, no, the fucking Democrats are cheating. I'm going to run an independent party and take all my followers and fucking watch the Democratic Party go down in flames and get elected as an independent. He could have done that in 2016. He could have told the Democrats to go fuck themselves and won independently. He was fundraising on the internet with $7 donations from working class people. But no, like a good little boy, like a good little doggy, he played ball with that establishment. And then what happened? Trump won because people got served up a hot plate of bullshit in the form of Hillary Clinton, and Trump won. And the same thing happened this year with Kamala. I think 2020 might have been a little different because it was a mail-in election. But circle back to my point, the kind of energy that Kid Rock has here, the like toxic masculinity, like fuck this company and fuck them, they're fucking crooks. Like, you need some of that energy to beat people like this. Like, you have to be harsh. You have to be a bit of a dick. You have to be kind of like a cunt, a dick, asshole, whatever word you want to use. You need that energy to foment real political change, because people aren't just, if you walk in with energy, we're like, hey, Ticketmaster, like, it's kind of bad what you're doing. I know you're making billions, but like, could you please stop? Do you really think that's going to work? I've got like the sunshine shining on me now. So I look like I'm glowing. Like, I have this sudden angelic glow to me. Oh, isn't it beautiful? Don't you think? Where is it? See, that's the thing about my goddamn sound effects. I was going to play this one.
Beautiful, man.
It's like way too late, way too delayed.
That's beautiful, man.
Anyway.
I heart porn star dick. Now, I heart feces.
I've not yet begun to defile myself.
Anyway, let's let Kid Rock finish his rant. I'll shut up now. God damn it. I'm all over the place here.
And I hope we can figure out ticketing so us as artists, when we set a price, we can get the tickets into the hands of the fans at the prices we set. And I know that's not really I'm a capitalist to the bone, and there's some questions there, but these bad actors and other all the ticketing companies, and they're not even scalpers, brokers, whatever you want to call them, they've hid behind the disguise of capitalism for years. Yep. This is one that we need some regulations on, either a price cap. I'd say 10%. You can't resell a ticket for 10%, like they 10, 15%, like they do in some European countries.
Douglas Murray was asked for a comment on Kid Rock's rant. Here's what he had to say.
You're an anti-Semite.
Douglas Murray hits hard. You know, that intellect, it's undeniable.
Or use this proof of human thing. Whatever it takes. I shouldn't be the one to figure it out. These motherfuckers should, but they haven't. They've done for years. I hope they all go down.
You're an anti-Semite.
But really what I hope for is we can fix ticketing for the fans. And by the way, they've been the artists too, but I'm kind of second in that equation. I want the fans to be able to go to a show at the prices I set for my tickets, and most artists do. We'll see if any other artists get on board, by the way, with this lawsuit and their management, if they want to talk and tell them about the bullshit that's going on for decades. A lot of them will out straight up. All these outlaw country singers. There'll be a bunch of.
Yeah, dude. I love that the first group he went after was the outlaw country singers, but wait, there's more.
When they should speak up for their fans. Let's see if Pearl Jam steps up. They wanted to fix ticketing years ago. They probably won't, because they'll be like, "Oh, we hate Donald Trump. We have Trump derangement syndrome."
Yep.
All these other presidents could have done something. Bush, Obama, Clinton. They didn't do shit. Nobody has. Trump does. Trump is. We are. So calling your bluffs right now. Let's see what happens. Rock on.
This public dare.
So anyway, how can you argue with that? By the same token, they're doing something about it. We'll see about that, Kid Rock, because as we saw with the Gaza thing just now, let's not fucking start sucking each other's dicks just yet. Okay, like it ain't like, okay, they filed the thing. Yeah, the Biden administration did too. And then what happened? Nothing kind of came of it. It kind of just like slowly dissipated. So, well, let's hope that they actually go all the way with this. And so our last story of the day. Before I wanted to play. Oh, I don't have it with me. Do I have it here? I had this great sound clip of Ticketmaster, but anyway, you get the idea. That's what they should be called. Thank you, Kid Rock, for your service. Last story of the day, Valentina Gomez. So if you're on social media, you know, God bless you. This woman kind of crossed my radar, and I have to say that she is absolutely one of the most fucking unhinged, and that's like, that word is gentle for her. She is one of the most absolutely fucking insane and unhinged people in politics today. There's no doubt about it. And I have to admit, I'm kind of like strangely drawn to that. Like, it's kind of attractive to me. Also, she's Latina, so like that's on her side too. But like this level of like unhinged Latina is like so insanely attractive to a gringo like myself, where it's like, yo, I guarantee you this woman is fire in the sack, because she is not only like Latina, but just like obviously completely batshit crazy, just like on another planet completely. So anyway, that's the argument I have to make about her, and forgive my boyhood crush attitude here. But I wanted to share this because I came across this. Actually, Fantano, the world's busiest the internet's busiest music geek, did this whole piece about how she's rapping. And I was like, see, this broad is beyond hinged, far beyond unhinged. She's like ultra mega unhinged. And this proves it even more to the point. So I want to show you what Fantano here had to say about Valentina's blossoming rap career. And I'll try to skip around in this so you don't have to watch the whole thing, because, you know, I don't necessarily agree with all this guy's political takes. Sometimes he's a little shit lib for my takes, but overall, I think he has some good takes, and I think he means well, and I appreciate that. And you're never going to agree with everybody. So listen to it.
Internet's busiest music nerd. I hope you're doing well.
and that you're ready to take on a little bit of auditory trauma here, because the sonic adventure we are about to embark on is not a joyous one. As you may or may not already know, the state of the country at the moment, unfortunately, is like not great. The economy is in the trash. Our rights are just disintegrating before our very eyes. And ICE Gestapo thugs are roaming the streets, harassing and abducting people.
So this lady too, like, I just want to say, this is one of the most terrible fucking things where they arrested her.
And as if this was not enough,
That woman is out. Like, the courts overturned that. She's a legal citizen. She was, so, you know, it's still not good, but the court worked in her favor. She's not an illegal immigrant, so she's back on the streets. Thank God.
Also have to be out here making music, and it just so happens to be some of the worst music created by man. For example, Lara Trump, maybe the most musically inclined Trump.
We're all out of luck. No, this can't be denied. You gotta be special.
I love how this woman's singing is so bad that not even the auto-tune can save it. Like, the complete lack of energy and passion in her voice just oozes through the pitch correction. And what's
He
also
totally nails that description. That was actually very accurate.
so funny is the way people generally talk about auto-tune, in how the artists who use it and lean into it are talentless and lazy. And yet when someone is singing severely out of key when using auto-tune, you can still kind of hear it. Like, you can make out the note that they would be singing if they weren't using the auto-tune, which is very much the case for this Lara track. But you know what? It's not just
people don't realize too that auto-tune is on everything, really. Like no album now, like, it's the way they use it. Some people do the over-tuning effect thing, like the T-Pain Kanye West thing, the over-tune effect to the max. It's like used on everything, but also, like, even when it's not very obvious, people use that effect to like clean up vocal lines and make sure they're not flat, because everybody hears a little flat, and it's like you can totally hear the difference. Anyway, auto-tunes on everything.
Just Lara out here who's making bangers. It's also everyone's favorite MAGA lyricist and asylum escapee, Forgiato Blow, who has some pretty big musical accomplishments under his belt.
So I have to admit, I've never heard of this guy until I saw this. I have no idea who this guy is.
I'll say that. Among them, a new collab project with none other than Stitches.
So I have seen that guy, because that guy is like one of the most face tatted dudes on the planet, and I think he gets attention for that reason.
You know, the guy that had that song about how much he loves cocaine way back when, which, I mean, banger, by the way. Unfortunately, Stitch's career didn't really take off after that song, and he is now relegated to having to collaborate with Forgiato Blow in order to get attention now. And they have this new, like, EP mini project out titled Make America White Again. And even less subtle, and what I mean by that is not subtle at all, is this new song he has out that is pretty much an instruction manual for lynching. Yep, that's what it is. It's just a song about lynching in 20.
It kind of reminds me. So when I was a kid, there's this punk band called the Dead Milkmen, and hit me in the comments if you've heard of the Dead Milkmen. But they have this song that's so great. It's called "This Is a Tiny Town, and we don't want you hanging around." And it's like making fun of people like that. So I think, you know, in the name of freedom of speech, obviously, I think these people that are doing this kind of like racist, like hillbilly-esque type shit should be allowed to do it. But it's like, it's hilarious, because it's like they might as well black their teeth out and like play a banjo with their toes in the video. You know what I mean? It's like they're just kind of exposing how like backwards and like unevolved and kind of like Neanderthal they are. And you know what I mean? And so anyway, it just made me think of that Dead Milkman song. It's hilarious. It's just like, this is a tiny town and we don't want you hanging around. This is a tiny
fucking 25. But the song I actually want to focus on in today's video is a bit of an older one, but still a good one. From
we're getting to my crush, mi amore, Valentina Just give it time. It's coming.
High Res and Valentina Gomez,
Oh.
and it's titled America First.
Just
Now,
look at
you
that
might be thinking, who is High Res?
sweet
Well,
face of hers. She almost looks kind of like Winnie Cooper from the Wonder Years. She has that just like sweet, pretty, like innocent face, but she's so fucking batshit unhinged. It's so goddamn sexy. I don't know why.
it's funny you ask, because who gives a fuck? He's making conservative rap music. The more interesting character here is Miss Gomez, who is a failed political candidate out of Missouri who has quite the rap sheet on the internet that we'll get into as we experience this song together.
Got love in so many places. No love for a politician, a congressman, or a senator. If the country that they put in first ain't the United States of America.
Yeah, I don't love any politician who's not putting America first. Oh my God. I know this track is older, but did Trump not just give $20 billion?
I kind of hate white guys too that rap and sound like they're from the hood. I like, to give you an example, like listen to like a guy like Atmosphere, I think Eminem can get away with like the like Ebonic speak type thing because he's from Detroit and he kind of was like one of the first white rappers who like gave respect to like the actual culture and wasn't just like some kind of hackneyed. Well, I shouldn't say that. MC Serch from Third Base was always legit, and there were legit white rappers before Eminem, but I think as far as mainstream rap goes, he was one of the first people who kind of like legitimately did it without it being like super like, oh, you're just copying black people. You know what I mean? Like he put his own spin on it, I guess. But when I hear guys like this dude that Fantano shook it, I'm just like, dude, it just sounds so contrived and weak and like uncreative and like unoriginal. And aside from the fact that it's kind of like, I guess it's just stupid. I don't like that.
To Argentina after they fucked up their entire economy with this libertarian bullshit. And this is actually a music related point as well, because what did the president of Argentina do after getting that payout? Why, hold a shitty rock concert, of course.
This is the president of Argentina, Javier Milei.
So this is a great point too that I never thought I would hear on Fantano's channel, but like if you remember like a few months ago, like all your libertarian friends were just like, Milei is such a great example of why like, cutting everything and fucking just robbing people through the tax code is the answer. And now like that country's broke and they need a bailout from us, which Trump gave them.
But yeah, this guy sucks ass. I mean, not only is the rationale behind his lyrics demented, he's pro-America and America first, but then simultaneously like paying lip service to the troops who are sent away.
Also, bro, that's Tom McDonald's lane. Get the fuck out of Tom McDonald's lane, bitch. That is not your lane. I'm sorry.
A war, saying like, just because I support the troops doesn't mean I'm supporting the war. Okay, but like, why is a war happening in the first place? And he's exactly the type of moron to sort of like conflate a criticism of the war with criticism of the troops themselves. I mean, he's already conflating criticism of America with hatred of America itself off the bat. So excuse me if I don't read this guy.
Who does that sound like? Conflating criticism of America with hatred of America. I can't put my finger on it. It just reminds me of a certain group of people. I can't look. Let me think about it.
Is like the brightest crayon in the box, especially since he let this Valentina Gomez woman in the fucking booth.
I am America first, not benefiting my purse. I never
anything
allowed
she
the
wants.
people to raise my name.
Valentina can have anything she wants. Just listen to how unhinged she is.
Okay, here we have Valentina saying that, allegedly she's not benefiting her purse here, when the whole concept of what she's doing right here,
Valentina,
there is a grift in and of itself. So yeah, even if you're not taking super PAC money by virtue of your ethics, or maybe you're too crazy to receive super PAC money, that doesn't necessarily mean you're not doing this out of self-interest here.
The Second Amendment is there to always.
Here's the problem with Fantano here. He's overthinking that. I mean, look at this woman. Here she is walking around in her backyard with an AK singing a rap song. I mean, she's what? How old is this woman, do you think? Probably like early 30s at the latest. I mean, she looks young, but she's Latina too, so she's going to be beautiful for a long time. Let's be honest.
protect my first. A better rapper than Lupe, and I don't even have to curse.
Okay, wow, a better rapper than Lupe, and she doesn't even have to curse. And we really have to get into this part here, this whole section here, because there are layers to this, man, more than I realized. First off,
I love Fantano here because he's really overthinking what is like pretty much just trash. Like the idea this woman rapping on any level is going to be trash, but like he's really like diving into the nuance of the things that she's actually rapping about here. Listen to this. This is great.
Let's just address the visual, because is this woman not wearing gun range ear protection right now? No one wants to hear that shit, not even her. But also, this lady randomly brings up Lupe Fiasco, apparently because her and Lupe have some beef. Because apparently a while back, she used one of Lupe's songs in a campaign promo bit, and Lupe legitimately had to take legal action to prevent this woman from doing this. And good on him for that, because this woman is a complete fucking psychopath. Because not only does her little bar here not make sense, because she's...
I love that too. She called him weak and gay because he didn't want her using his music. Oh my god, like if you could see the hearts coming out of my eyes right now, I'm so in love.
Very much does curse, but this lady does a lot more than just like post slurs against minority groups and the LGBTQ community. There's a viral video of her, for example, famously burning the Quran, as well as this a very interesting visual that she has in
Be Still My Heart
regards to deportation and immigration, suggesting that we should just like execute people for immigrating here. There's more, but we are not even done with this woman's verse yet.
That's like the type of Republican overcompensation that they do like with gay people. Like that guy who got caught in the airport like trying to find a gay prostitute who was like super anti-gay and like part of the Clinton Larry Craig was his name. That's so Republican. Like she's like, oh, she's an illegal immigrant, so she's got to like squash immigrants.
Let's keep the American dream alive and put an end to all lives. BLM raised billions, and what did they do for Black lives?
BLM raised millions, but what do they do for Black lives?
She's so gorgeous.
I don't know, probably a lot more than Trump has done for his fucking voter base, because all he's done over the past year is made it harder for them to get a job.
I just want to like to be clear once again, like I don't agree with her politics at all. I think she's fucking completely unhinged, and there's something that is so attractive about that quality to me. That's my issue. I'm just sharing it with you.
Gasoline and groceries more expensive. Again, referring to the Argentina thing that I just talked about minutes ago, Trump has literally done more to bail out that country and its soybean farmers than the farmers we have over here in the US who now can't sell soybeans to China because of the fucking tariffs. But the stupidity does not stop there.
Politicians promise you the whole world, then they backslide. What happened to Hunter's laptop? You know I'm always strapped out. Gun rights are women's rights. Feminists been sold a lie. You can mess around and find out. Play stupid games, win a stupid price. God bless the whole USA, even the ones who hate.
First off, we're still talking about Hunter's laptop. I know the song is old, but like even at this point, the Hunter's laptop story, and also
the Hunter's laptop story is big. And this is what shitlibs don't understand about that is like that was an election interference story. That was a legitimate fucking election interference story where the entire media colluded together to keep a story out of people's minds so that Biden could get elected. Like, that's why that's an important story. And like, these people just gloss over that shit. Like, oh, you're still talking about Hunter's laptop. Yeah, because you fucking dumb fucks don't think it was a serious thing. And it was way more serious than your tiny little brains can comprehend, because you still live in a world where like Trump came along and invented lying and like ruined politics.
Bless the USA, even the ones that hate me. Lady, your fucking voter base hates you. That's why you didn't win your election. The demographic of voters you are trying to win over hate the Latino community, whether you've immigrated here legally or not.
I don't believe that either. I don't believe that either. I think that's a narrative. There's this narrative designed to like make us mad at each other. Like white people just hate Latinos. I can tell you multiple stories about people I've talked to who are Black, Asian, Native American, Latino, who are like, we need to enforce immigration laws. Like illegal immigrants are being catered to. Like there's a story that my cousin told me who drives rideshare about this couple that her husband had cancer. They're American citizens who are Latino. And the lady at the hospital literally told them, oh, it's too bad you're not illegal. We have all kinds of programs for you if you were. And they voted for Trump because of that. Those are Latinos, like native United States, US born Latinos. And that's the thing that people don't understand. Like, it's easy to frame Tucker Carlson as some kind of like white supremacist because he's like America first or whatever. But he's not saying just for white people. There are plenty of Americans who were born here who are not white. So like they should be prioritized too. And no one's saying like white people first. That's racist. And listen, we can get into a whole thing about white supremacy and stuff. I do think that you know, it's just very clear that there is such a thing as, you know, white privilege, and like, you know, white European colonizers who took over this country, like have had, I mean, look at slavery and try to fucking tell me otherwise, you dumb motherfucker. Or the subjugation of the Indians, the Native Americans, or the fucking subjugation of Chinese people to build the railroads. Like, it's there. Okay. But it's something that I think we've outgrown, and we've realized that it's not okay. And so we're moving past it. And that doesn't mean we should forget about it, but it doesn't have to be the fucking thing we go to every goddamn time we have a problem either. So, you know, anyway, let me let him.
Which is why we're continually seeing examples of ICE agents deporting, arresting, harassing, and assaulting red-blooded, born here Americans.
Kind of stuff. It's like, I'm supposed to believe now the media that like lied to me about COVID, that fucking lied to me about the Hunter Biden laptop, that lied to me about all these things, is like, now they're telling the truth about what Trump and ICE are actually doing. Now I can just trust that because like Trump won, they're being honest. Fuck that. Like, I don't believe any of this. And like the stuff, the footage he showed, even, it's like that woman, yeah, she shouldn't have been arrested like that. And she was arrested. Let's be honest. If you know the story, her name's Ozturk. She was arrested because she wrote a op-ed that was critical of a certain country in the Middle East, and they used that to arrest her for illegal immigration. The courts looked at it and went, you can't do that, and she got out. Now, she shouldn't have been in jail at all, but still, that's a situation where, you know, it played out. Anyway, back to my beautiful Valentina here.
For you today, and no super PAC paid me.
Okay, lady, the super PAC didn't pay you. I get it. You're completely independently crazy. You're voluntarily crazy.
She's got to be on the $7,000 proposed list. Let's be honest, okay? But anyway, I just wanted to share a little bit of my crush with you there. That unhinged ass woman who is clearly out of her goddamn mind, drugs or not. But like, you know, again, it's like I likened her to the anti-gay Republicans who are secretly gay. It's like she's like one of those people who has to like overcompensate for being an immigrant because, you know, to appease the Republican, you know, district she's in or whatever. But that aside, I think we live in an interesting time where there are things actually moving in directions I like. And, you know, we're going to see how some of this stuff pans out over the next year or two. And with that, I would like to close tonight with one of my favorite bits for you. And it ties into the Valentina thing and the police. And I'm going to play for you right now, Fund the Police, my rap song featuring Marjorie Taylor Greene and AOC double teaming the mic together. And thank you for joining me. Like and subscribe if you're not already in there, and we'll see you out there. I'm gonna maybe Saturdays with the day I'm gonna start doing these broadcasts, but you know, hit me in the comments and you will see, you know, additional videos popping up, and who knows, you may even see me pop up live more frequently during the week. We'll see how things pan out, but I got love for y'all. Thank you for showing me love, and take good care of yourselves out there. Let's hope things continue. Let's hope things improve. I can't even say, for honesty, like I feel like the price of groceries for me has continued to go up even since Trump took over. So let's see how the next little while goes, because it doesn't feel like things are getting better yet by any stretch of the imagination. And I hope you get out to one of those No Kings protests today. Eh? You rebel, you. Anyway, we'll see you next time. Take good care of yourself.
Where to tell the truth, Marjorie? Oh yeah, AOC, I'm going in. Fund the police, even though they won't come around. If your neighborhood's predominantly brown, and if you call them, they'll most likely show up and uncategorically shoot at minorities. Despite that shit, we gotta fund. Give corrupt mother lovers more badges and guns. Our police state is too big to fail, so let's fund the prison complex till we all live in jails. Tweeting at me cause I'm in Congress, dropping cash on the military complex, searching my timeline for racism. Cops know that I got mad funding to give them. AOC, and you wanna date me, cause I'm fresh, yo, put you in the friend zone. Criticize me, I will scream violence. Then send the cops to your house just to silence you and your family's right to speak. Then I'll give $1 billion to the Capitol Police. I'm in the house, yo, we got the purse strings to fund the police state and do all the worst things. But I'll never do anything out there like vote against war or for universal health care. Fund the police. Fund the police. Yeah, girl. Fund the police. Fund the police. Yeah, fund the police. Fund the police.
Colluded with Russia. I wrote a book about it. Trump colluded with Russia. I wrote a book about it. Matt Taibbi is a bad person. Trump colluded with Russia. Trump colluded with Russia. Matt Taibbi is a bad person. I wrote a book about it. Matt Taibbi is bad. Jeff Girth. Trump colluded with Russia. I wrote a book about it. Trump colluded with Russia. I wrote a book about it. Matt Taibbi is a bad person. Trump colluded with Russia. Trump colluded with Russia. Matt Taibbi is a bad person.